Birdsong drifted over fields that looked ordinary. Then a shovel struck soil that did not feel right. What they found next would change everything. This is the case that forced a nation to ask a hard question. How could two children vanish while their mother smiled for cameras? And the truth was hiding in plain sight. Rexburg, Idaho, can feel like a place where nothing bad lasts long. Wide streets, neat lawns, mountains in the distance. Behind closed doors, a different story was unfolding. Welcome to Obsidian Crime. The truth hides in the darkness. To understand the tragedy, we need to know J.J. Vallow. Friends called him bright and affectionate. He loved jokes and he loved being included. He thrived on routines that made him feel safe. He also had challenges that required patience and steady care. Those who knew him saw a child who tried hard. They remember his laugh and the way he reached for trusted hands. And then there was Tylee Ryan, a teenager with a protective streak. She could be funny and quietly observant. She noticed what others missed. People close to her said she carried herself older than her years. Not because she had to, but because she often chose to. She loved her little brother, and she watched out for him. She mattered to friends who trusted her honesty. She mattered to family who counted on her strength. In September 2019, their days looked ordinary from the outside. School schedules, errands, family routines. They should have had a future measured in milestones. Instead, their world narrowed to secrets and silence. What no one realized at the time was how fast danger was closing in. JJ was last seen alive in Rexburg in late September. Tylee was last seen earlier that month. After that, there were no verified sightings. No birthday photos. No school drop-offs. No messages to the people who loved them. And then, silence. When concern grew, it did not begin with a dramatic alarm. It began with confusion. A missed call. A child not showing up. A story that did not match what others knew. Some relatives sensed something was wrong. They asked questions that should have been easy to answer. Where are the kids? Are they safe? Can we talk to them? The answers were slippery. Excuses came, then changed. Plans were mentioned, then abandoned. Each delay bought more time, and someone was watching. By November, Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell left Idaho for Hawaii. They checked into the Kauai Beach Resort. They appeared relaxed to people around them. They took photos like newlyweds on a fresh start. Meanwhile, two children remained unseen. 5 months would pass without contact. Law enforcement in Idaho began treating the situation as urgent. Rexburg police and the FBI coordinated efforts. Detective Ray Hermosillo became a key face of the search. Investigators requested proof of life. They wanted to see JJ. They wanted to confirm Tylee was safe. They were met with avoidance and stories that shifted again. The case grew heavier with every day, because it was not only about missing children, it was also about a widening circle of suspicious deaths. Lori's husband, Charles Vallow, had been killed in Arizona. Chad Daybell's first wife, Tammy, had died in Idaho. Lori's brother, Alex Cox, would also die. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Behind closed doors, a different story was unfolding. In early December, police executed a search warrant in Hawaii. They went to the Kauai Beach Resort. They asked again for the children. They asked again for the truth. But the children were not there. Not in a room. Not with friends. Not at school. Investigators left with the same emptiness they arrived with. The public learned what authorities already feared. Two children were missing, and their mother would not show them safe. What they found next would change everything, but not yet. But investigators were about to discover something that changed everything. The hunt began with paperwork and patience. Search warrants, phone records, financial trails. Digital forensics became a map of movements and intentions. Analysts examined location data and messages. They looked at photographs and timelines. Every small detail mattered. Witness interviews added pressure. Neighbors described seeing JJ in the apartment complex. Then suddenly, not seeing him. Family members described strained conversations. They recalled Lori's calm tone when others were panicking. It felt rehearsed. It felt like a curtain pulled shut. The investigation widened to Chad Daybell's circle. His property in Idaho became a focus. So did the beliefs he and Lori shared. A fanatical system that spoke of light and dark spirits. Talk of people becoming zombies. Talk that treated human beings like labels. It was not faith. It was a framework used to excuse cruelty. What no one realized at the time was how much that belief system blurred motive. Some saw it as delusion. Others saw calculation. Investigators considered both, because the results were the same. 2 children were gone, and someone benefited from their absence. Money became another thread. Life insurance policies hovered in the background. So did Social Security benefits connected to the children. Detectives followed what could be followed. Transactions, rent records, travel bookings, even small purchases helped build a calendar of lies. But here's the detail that still haunts investigators. While families begged for answers, the couple lived openly in Hawaii. They walked beaches. They posed for pictures. They spoke of peace. The truth was hiding in plain sight. In January 2020, arrests came in Hawaii. Lori and Chad were taken into custody. Not for murder at first, for charges tied to the children's disappearance. The legal system moved carefully, step by step, because prosecutors needed proof that could stand in court. Not rumors, not outrage. Proof. The case still had dead ends. Investigators had no bodies, no confirmed scene, no single witness who saw the final moments. The couple's flight to Hawaii complicated everything, and the religious language clouded motive. It turned conversations into riddles. It turned accountability into fog. At this point, investigators had missing children and shifting stories. What would you have done? Drop your theory in the comments. Even with pressure building, the search remained methodical. Detectives compared timelines across states. They coordinated with agencies in Arizona and Utah. They reviewed earlier incidents tied to the same circle. A shooting attempt involving Brandon Boudreaux raised alarms. Detective Hermosillo later testified about Alex Cox's searches. Ammunition, maps to a home, digital breadcrumbs that suggested planning. Still, none of it answered the simplest question. Where were JJ and Tylee? Each day without them sharpened the fear. And then, silence. The breakthrough came in June 2020. After months of piecing together movements and messages. After warrants and interviews and sleepless nights. Law enforcement returned to Chad Daybell's property with purpose. They had enough to search with precision. They had enough to dig. And then, they found it. In the quiet hours before dawn, the property became a crime scene. Investigators marked areas of interest. Forensic teams worked carefully. No rushing, no guessing. Only procedure and respect for what might be uncovered. Soon they located buried remains. They confirmed the worst. JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan were found on the property. A missing persons case became a murder investigation. What they found next would change everything. Attention turned to Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow Daybell as central suspects. Chad had presented himself as a religious author, a man with followers and visions. Lori had been seen by some as a devoted mother. That image collapsed under evidence, because the children were not missing by accident. They were gone, and their absence was explained away. If this case is keeping you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button. Building the case required restraint and clarity. Prosecutors needed to show jurors a timeline that could not be dismissed. Digital forensics helped. Location data placed key people in key places. Messages revealed mindset and coordination. Property searches established where evidence was found. Forensic examination confirmed identity and manner of death. Investigators also examined the pattern around other deaths. They asked whether there was a common thread. Control. Money. Belief used as permission. The truth was hiding in plain sight. Because it was never only about disappearing. It was about replacing real children with a story. A story where harm could be called necessary, A story where grief could be called weakness. A story where accountability could be postponed. What police did not know was that the public was watching them the entire time. Families were watching too. They waited for the law to speak with certainty. They waited for names to be cleared or condemned. And they waited for the children to be honored as people. The confrontation became unavoidable after the discovery. Charges escalated. The legal language finally matched the reality. In June 2020, the couple was charged with murder. Court hearings followed. Extraditions and custody transfers took place. The case expanded into multiple jurisdictions. But the center remained the same. 2 children who deserved safety. What happened next would haunt this community forever. As the full picture emerged, investigators described a web of influence. They described doomsday expectations and spiritual rankings. They described talk of zombies as a label for those in the way. There was no humane purpose in that label. It existed to make harm easier to imagine. It existed to make conscience quieter. And then, silence. No confession arrived that brought comfort. Instead, the case relied on evidence and testimony. Witnesses described behavior that felt cold. They described statements about the dead being happy. They described a lack of remorse that unsettled everyone listening. The darkness exposed was not only what happened to JJ and Tylee. It was how many warning signs surrounded them. A rush into a new marriage. A sudden move. A child pulled from school. A family divided by secrecy. A circle of deaths that kept expanding. The truth was hiding in plain sight, until it could not hide anymore. But the darkest revelation was still to come. In court, the focus turned to accountability. To names. To dates. To evidence that could be tested. Lori was convicted for the murders of JJ and Tylee. She was also convicted in connection to Tammy Daybell's death. Sentencing brought life terms. A judge spoke about the children's worth. Family members spoke about permanent absence. The courtroom heard their love and their pain. In September 2025, Lori was extradited back to Idaho. She began serving life sentences there. She later filed an appeal seeking reversal. She also gave her first interview since sentencing. It happened on her 52nd birthday. For families, time did not soften the loss. It only stretched it. The aftermath left deep marks. JJ's biological father, Todd Trahan, spoke of torment. He questioned the adoption decision he once believed was best. Extended family members carried grief mixed with disbelief. A community that once felt sheltered learned a new vigilance. The case raised awareness about extreme movements and coercive control. It highlighted gaps in child welfare responses. And it forced many to reconsider how danger can look ordinary. Years later, the questions linger in quieter forms. How many moments could have changed the outcome? Which warning signs were missed and why? How belief can be weaponized inside a family, and how quickly children can become invisible to systems. The case remains a cautionary tale, not because it is sensational, because it is human. 2 children were loved, and then lost, and the world had to learn their names in tragedy. JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan's story reminds us that children deserve relentless protection. Years later, the case still echoes across quiet neighborhoods and courtrooms. Our thoughts remain with the victims and their families. If you want more cases that reveal the darkness hiding in plain sight, subscribe now. Next time on Obsidian Crime, a disappearance that begins with a single unanswered call.